Husband destroys cheating wife with solid proof in front of her lawyer. Reddit cheating stories. When I walked into that law office, I wasn't just a broken husband anymore. I was a man who had finally gathered every piece of truth, ready to expose the woman who had shattered our vows. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what was about to unfold. Across the table sat my wife, Sarah, the woman I once believed was my forever, beside her confident, sharp-tongued divorce lawyer. She had no idea what I was holding in my briefcase, the evidence that would destroy every lie she had told. Sarah and I had been married for 12 years. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. We had a son, Ethan, who was 11, and a life we'd built together from scratch. I worked long hours as an IT specialist, and Sarah was a freelance designer who mostly worked from home. She had always been my biggest supporter, or at least, I thought she was. Things started to change slowly, almost imperceptibly. Late night, client calls, sudden trips for meetings, and the subtle emotional distance that crept between us like a shadow. I ignored it at first. I told myself she was stressed, maybe overworked. But one night, I found something I couldn't ignore, her phone lighting up at 1:27 a.m. with a message that read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. Same place tomorrow." My heart dropped. I stared at that screen for what felt like an eternity, my mind fighting to make sense of it. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I began to plan. If she was lying, I wanted proof, undeniable proof. Over the next few weeks, I installed a small GPS tracker in her car and synced it with my phone. Every time she claimed to be at a client meeting, I saw her location ping from a small boutique hotel just outside of town. It was the same address, every time. My worst fears were no longer suspicions, they were facts. But I didn't stop there. I used my tech skills to recover deleted messages from her phone backup on our shared cloud account. What I found tore me apart. Intimate photos, flirty messages, and detailed plans for weekends I thought she'd spent working. Her affair wasn't a fling, it was an emotional and physical betrayal. One message stood out above all others. Her lover, a man named Daniel, wrote, "He'll never find out. You're too smart for him. Once the divorce is done, we can finally be free." She was already planning to leave me, to divorce me, all while pretending everything was fine. I was nothing but a stepping stone in her new life. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to be strategic. I began documenting everything, screenshots, timestamps, hotel records, even photos of her car at the hotel parking lot. I hired a private investigator to get visual proof. Within 2 weeks, I had a full dossier, videos, call logs, and photos that painted the full picture of her deceit. Then, the day came. Sarah handed me a divorce notice one evening, pretending to act heartbroken, saying things like, "We've just grown apart, Mark. I need to find myself again." I simply nodded, suppressing every ounce of rage inside me. "All right," I said calmly. "Let's do it your way." What she didn't know was that I already had an appointment set up, with her lawyer. The day of the meeting felt like the calm before a storm. Her attorney, a polished man in his 40s named Mr. Walters, greeted me with that artificial smile lawyers wear when they think they're in control. Sarah sat beside him, dressed immaculately, her face painted with fake sorrow. "Mark," she started softly, "I want this to go smoothly. There's no need for anger or bitterness." I looked her straight in the eye. "Oh, I agree completely. No bitterness. Just truth." I placed a thick folder on the table. Mr. Walters glanced at it, clearly intrigued. "And what's that?" he asked. "Proof," I replied, my voice steady. "Of everything your client has been hiding." I opened the folder and slid a series of photos across the table. Sarah and Daniel together at the hotel, holding hands, kissing. Her face turned ghostly pale. Walters frowned, flipping through the images, realizing immediately that this was no fabrication. Then came the screenshots of the messages, the timestamps, the voice recordings. Walters leaned back, clearly uncomfortable. Sarah's hands began to shake. "Mark, this isn't," she stammered. I cut her off. "Save it. Every lie, every night you told me you were working late, I have proof. You wanted this divorce, Sarah. You're going to get it. But not the way you imagined." Her lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Thompson, we can." I interrupted, placing one final document on the table, A financial record showing she had secretly transferred money from our joint account to a private one under Daniel's name. Walter's composure shattered. Mrs. Thompson, he said coldly, turning to her, I can't represent you further. This is, he sighed deeply, a clear case of infidelity and financial deception. Sarah buried her face in her hands as tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't feel satisfaction, just closure. For months I had been drowning in lies, and now I could finally breathe. The divorce process that followed was swift. With all the evidence I had, the court granted me primary custody of Ethan and the majority of our shared assets. Sarah walked away with almost nothing, not out of cruelty, but because she'd already thrown everything away herself. Months later, I found myself sitting on our old porch with Ethan. He asked me, Dad, do you still love Mom? I took a deep breath before answering. Son, love doesn't just vanish overnight. But sometimes, loving someone means letting them face the consequences of what they've done. He nodded quietly, leaning his head on my shoulder. It took time, but I rebuilt my life. I went to therapy, started spending more time with Ethan, and slowly learned to trust again. I realized that strength isn't about revenge, it's about reclaiming your peace after betrayal tries to destroy it. As for Sarah, I later heard she and Daniel didn't last long. Lies built on lies always collapse eventually. And me, I walked away with the one thing she could never take, my integrity.